button. There you go. We are live. Welcome, 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 everybody. I know I presume no one's there just yet, but bear with us. We'll give you a little while for people to join. In the meanwhile, if you are there, say hello, comment. At least we know we're not talking to ourselves, although we don't mind doing that. We're those kind of people, right? But yeah, Gareth, I always kind of ramble for the first minute and a half, really, just to give some people who are going to join live the chance to join and don't miss too much of, especially the introductions for you, and so that they know who we're talking to, builds that story, etc., etc. Hope you don't mind.
No worries. Nice to settle in.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, you used to get to watch me talk rubbish for a minute and a half, 90 seconds. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if you are here. I think Pete and Mick said they're going to come along on the invite, so hopefully they can come along and say hi. Everybody else, if you are here, please say hello. And if you have any questions anytime during this, Gareth or I, probably more likely Gareth, he is the expert in elite sport. Please ask him. But yeah, well, we're a minute and a half now, so we'll get started. Hello, everybody. It's lovely to see you on a murky Tuesday in England. What's it like over there, Gareth?
It's the opposite of murky, Rich. It's really nice, actually.
Okay, look, we can end this call early if you want. I don't need that. We're in cold January still, just. And I think it's like 6-7 degrees. So yeah, I'd much rather be where you are. But yeah, looking forward to having this conversation. And I think when I was first introduced to you, I was like, look, this guy is it's a cool guy to meet and be introduced to, just because being a hockey player and a sportsman, I find this story fascinating, and understanding what elite athletes do has always been a bit of an interesting topic for me, and what sets them apart and how much focus goes into their behaviors, etc., to make them who they are. And so I'm interested to hear what your advice and background and everything else that you might share throughout this. So I'm really excited to get that going. Before we start, though, and before we get into introducing yourself and telling us about your story, a quick introduction to me, if anybody doesn't know who I am. My name is Rich. I'm the founder of Employees Health. I'm a high-performance exec coach. Employees Health is a workplace wellbeing company. We help companies create and implement strategies and different activities into that strategy. So anything from health checks to mental health first aid to different types of workshop, even massage of work and stuff like that. So we support companies in lots of different ways in regards to health and well-being. And then the performance coaching is what it is. We work with team leaders and teams to create performance and overcome challenges. So yeah, that's me. That's the boring bit out of the way. All over to Gareth. Gareth, say hello.
Hi everyone. My name is Garreth Ewing. A high performance coach working with high performance individuals and teams with To Be Limitless, which is a massive coaching company based in Dubai. Really amazing place to work. I have a background in sports. I've done 30 years. This is my 30th season of hockey, which tells you how old I am, but been lucky enough to do 18 years of that at high performance level, both here and in South Africa and in the USA. And I'm an FIH coach and FIH educator. And I'm busy with growing a business, working in a different space, and really excited to be here today.
Oh, thanks, sir. Yeah. Pleasure that you're here. Thank you for giving me your time. I don't really know how to start this apart from, can you just dive into that story a little bit more and give us a little bit more information about kind of your journey through sport, and to what you do now, really, and where you're at?
Yeah. Thanks, Rich. I think like all of us, I was a player to start with, and honestly stumbled into coaching but way back in the 90s as a way of making a bit of extra cash as a student. And then it became something that went from kind of a hobby to a passion to a job. When I turned 30, I said, right, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to see, how much I can improve, how far I can take it, how much I can learn. And it grew from there. And I was fortunate enough to work with some very strong athletes over the years and some very strong coaches as well, which I learned from. I was also fortunate enough to go to 5 World Cups in different capacities and finished up as the head coach of the South African men's hockey team. Took them to the Tokyo Olympics, the Birmingham Commonwealth Games, and we played a season of the FIH Pro League. And then the beginning of last year, I transitioned into performance coaching, which is something I'd been building up to for about 3.5 years, qualified through To Be Limitless's APC qualification. And I'm also a Gallup Global Strengths coach. And I'm using that experience and that knowledge working with athletes and teams and using it in a slightly different way and serving my clients to the best of my ability.
I love that. Wealth of experience and knowledge and stuff, which I can't wait to kind of really understand what makes the elite sportsman and then the elite human being and then the elite kind of employee. But the guys at To Be Limitless are great. Who obviously it's how we connected. So I did my performance coaching qualification through as well. And I, like you, similar, right? I started obviously being a hockey player since the age of 8, get to university going, okay, well, actually, I like this a lot. Let's do this. I did sports science coaching at university and then coached the team in my final year and then have coached kind of men's teams since the age of like 26, 27 up until kind of now. So very kind of similar, but just took that slight path towards kind of performance coaching and with people more so than the coaching with hockey. So yeah, so let's get into it. Before we move into our workplace and discuss elite performers in the workplace, it'd be interesting to hear from your perspective what makes elite athletes and elite sports people.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, a huge question. Everything I speak about today will come from my experience, which in itself is just what it is. And I'm sure there are people watching who come from different environments. But I think if we take the first assumption, physiology aside, so being able to perform at the physical and technical level required for whatever that sport may be. Not everybody's cut out for that. We know that. And it's then what sets those performers apart from each other that is really interesting. And a lot of that is between the ears. A lot of that is in the chest, in the heart, in terms of character and in terms of mental approach and effort. And I say effort deliberately because it's about doing it every single day to the best of your ability and not just when you're in competition or when you're in training camp. I think, you're going to hear me say consistency all chat. The elite performers are the ones who work consistently well and consistently hard, and they find that balance where they are driven to perform on an everyday basis, never mind just on the field of play. And I think that's one of the big, kind of dividing factors for me.
Yeah. And I think there's a big difference between people who genetically have this, as you said, physiological superior to those who then use that in the right way to then become the best of their ability and with their genetics and with their body, right? And that's I've written down consistency before. You said you're going to talk about consistency a lot. I think obviously that plays a big role. Is there anything else that really stands out when you look at the higher performance?
There's no doubt that a competitive spirit plays its part. A desire to be the best and a desire to win. There's no doubt those things are are very important. Any high performance environment, is competitive. It sometimes can be a little ugly, and it's the people who are strong enough mentally, physically, and character-wise that are going to get through that. And that doesn't mean you have to be ugly too. It's the values you put around your performance which can make the difference. And that's talking about hard work. That's talking about what you put into your body. It's talking about who you associate with. It's talking about how you sleep. It's talking about what you're doing when nobody's looking, which is such a massive cliche, but so true. And then also how you interact with the people around you. It's even if you are a one-man sport or a one-person sport, you still have a support team. You still interact with other competitors. You still interact with media. You interact with your manager, whatever it might be. How you work with those people, that's still a team, and how you interact with them can be really, really important and really, really influential.
Yeah, it's interesting. You said something there about how not letting people influence your values, your goals, your direction, and the attitudes of others and how that can play an impact. Can you expand on that for me?
I think it comes down to values. We're all blessed with specific strengths, and how we lean into them is really, really important. But it's also the decisions that we make to be successful in a specific space. And I think in sport, it's obviously so easy to spot are the athletes who put in the work consistently, who are not influenced by those around them, who are not putting in the right kind of work, who are not carrying themselves in the right kind of way, who are the ones that can be consistently successful and who can get some longevity. It's about routines and rituals. It's about doing what needs to be done every single day, even if you're away with people who don't share your work ethic or who are not even in your sport. And I think it's consistency, it's a willingness to do it, and a willingness to do it deliberately that really makes the difference. The athletes that stand out for me are the ones not just who do extra, but who do their routine, and then they get into what's happening in terms of the team environment. So those rituals, the way they wake up, the way they prepare their bodies, whether it's a stretch or a run or whatever it might be, those things happen irrespective of what the rest of the schedule is for the day, in the team environment. And that just tells you they're doing that stuff at home as well.
Yeah. Can we dive into this ritual? You said, and the routine and rituals is a really nice kind of phrase for this. Can we dive into that and kind of? I know it's hard because we both are very hockey focused, so I understand we might dive into the hockey field a little bit more than probably what we would anywhere else. But those kind of what are those the standout rituals that people are doing, or the standout routines that people have, both from a behavior standpoint, but also like a mindset standpoint that allows them to achieve success?
I think there are two layers to this in my experience. There's the individual routine, where it's about when you wake up. It's about what you do immediately after you wake up. Could be something simple like sitting outside in the sunshine, or in the fresh air, having a coffee or having a cup of tea, just giving yourself some quiet time in the morning to get yourself going. It could be some stretching routines that you do by yourself. Could be some visualization, some yoga, whatever it might be. And then there's also the kind of the team rituals, which are really good in terms of making emotional connection with each other. Because if it's a team walk, if it's a team jog and stretch, if it's little high fives or ways to connect with each other right before training starts, and then the cooling down routines and the little fun bits that happen, whether it's awards for the day or acknowledgement of someone who's contributed above and beyond, just to again create rhythm to a day and connection to each other within that rhythm. I think that's really useful. And again, good athletes and good performers across the board keep routines. You could talk about a ritual, you could talk about a routine, but it's something that you do deliberately every day at roughly the same time, and you do it very mindfully. Sport and high performance is also in that thriving and flow state where things are just happening because you've trained it and you've worked towards it and you've played out that scenario 1,000 times. But it's also tied to deliberate action every day. And it doesn't matter what the sport is. It doesn't matter, in fact, what the performance environment is. Deliberate action every day is important.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It makes me, all the time I'm thinking, I'm just reflecting on sport and my experience and past. And like, I've now started playing basketball, and that's a very different environment to the hockey field, because there's less, because obviously hockey's a very free-flowing sport. You do one thing, you do the other, whereas in basketball, is that a storm where you are?
Yeah, there's a massive thunderstorm rolling in. So I take back what I said about the weather earlier, but I hope it doesn't produce too much background noise.
No, mate. It serves you right, to be fair, if I'm honest with you. No, I think it's interesting seeing the differences between the two different sports. Basketball has these really good opportunities to be really positive in those plays or in those wins. You win something, you do something well, the team comes together, gives everybody a little high five, well done, good job, good block, good shot, whatever it might be, even on the transition stuff. Whereas hockey, I feel there's less moments for that. And so there needs to be more kind of focus during, and then now reflecting, going, okay, well, my next coaching role, how can I bring that into the team environment? Just those little wins and those positive little touch points where, like, I was working, good job, high five, or actually when we break up, what are the positives from that? What do we do well? So that's a really interesting point.
Yeah, I mean, there's a nice example. Abby Wambach said, always look for the person who gave you the assist and point to her when we're talking about from a football point of view. And yeah, it's acknowledging there's always going to be those moments in a game. If it's eye contact, if it's a smile, if it's some kind of body contact when the opportunity presents itself. It's that reinforcement of connection is valuable. Yeah,
100%. It's interesting, isn't it? And I reflect on football when we talk about that, and I see it from a very kind of, it seems like a very selfish standpoint. When you see a football player score, I don't know how much you're into football or soccer, I don't know what you call it over there. That and how they when they score, they will just go off into the corner flag and celebrate, rather than, I feel like, as a team, if we score or an individual scores in a hockey game, they go straight to the person who's maybe created that or been part of that setup. The celebration isn't the same.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I don't have an answer to that. I've seen athletes in hockey matches run off to the corner flag as well. But it's curious. I think the act of celebration is actually super important. And yes, some people might want to make it about themselves. Other people might want to make it about the team. But, you work so bloody hard to score a goal or to win a match or to win a race. Celebrate when it goes right, because sometimes there's no difference between the effort that you put in on the days when you lose versus the days that you win. So appreciate it when it goes right and acknowledge each other when it does.
Yeah, 100%. Love that. I've got two questions on kind of elite sport. First is an example. Can you give me an example of potentially one of your best athletes? If you look back and go, okay, well, this person really stood out, and kind of tell me what it was what they did that made them stand out and why they were the best of.
I've been blessed to to be around some very, very good players, and not just in the men's national team, but in various other environments as well. There's a player that really stands out for me, and that was a chap named Austin Smith, who was a captain of the team, multiple capped player. He's actually moved into coaching now, and there was just this element of full commitment to his craft. So he set a high expectation for himself, and he worked very hard to meet that expectation, and then he put that 100% into what was needed on the field. So a level of competition and physicality, like if you played against him, you knew you were having a game. He got stuck into you, and he expected you to do the same in return. But also he had his plan before the ball came to him. So we always talk about that in terms of athletes. He knew what he was going to do before he got the ball. He had his tools for getting out of trouble, and he knew when and how to use them, and to use his skills to their maximum without going over into the space where he was going to be uncomfortable and his execution was going to collapse. But there was a discipline to him as well. That was he trained hard. He ate properly. He celebrated when he had his chance to celebrate, but the rest of the time he was a professional, and he played and treated himself like a professional, and he treated the people around him like professionals too, even if they weren't.
Yeah, I love that. It gives good insights into a few different elements: understanding personal strengths, understanding kind of the ability to forward think, and a few things which kind of stood out there.
Yeah. Sorry, I lost you there. Thunderclap in the background.
This is technology. This is the real life situation. But no, I was just saying, I think there's a few bits to stand out. It's like using, and I know you're a big fan of this, being obviously a Gallup strengths coach, understanding his own strengths, understanding he uses those and optimizes those to his best of his ability, and then also like we call it pre-scanning, but that forward thinking, planning, understanding like the picture going forward, how that a clear objective of what that looks like, he performs at his best.
Absolutely. And doing what you're good at the end of the day, that's something I used to say to the players quite a lot. You can work as hard as you like on stuff that you can improve, and especially in the sports space, you can always improve, but you're going to have your go-to strengths and skills that are going to kind of be your fallback. And I often think in the sports space is athletes who struggle often go to a space where they have to do something beyond their skill level, whereas those athletes who have a good idea of what they do well under pressure are the ones who are going to be that much more consistent over the course of a game.
Yeah. And yeah, as you're saying, I'm just picturing the team I'm playing with going, okay, yeah, he does that really well, and the reason why he stands out is because he does that consistently. I said my last question around elite sports before we move this into the workplace or even into teams, I guess, is and I think it links in with Austin Smith really well. What makes the best leaders within teams?
So again, if we go from the assumption that in a sports team, and I know we're going to move into the workspace in a second, you have to, of course, be able to do what is required physically and technically, to then not have to worry so much about that you can have a little bit of a bigger view of the game and what's going on around you, but also then that ability to do what you say you're going to do, because or do what you say you want others to do. So that consistency of execution, that consistency of values is really, really important. Captains, certain sports require a captain to be more important than in others. Certain sports, certain cultures require, really put the captain at the forefront of everything. Other spaces sometimes put the coach at the forefront of everything. It's about being able to carry an image of the team, or even of the country that you're representing, really, really well and really authentically. I think authenticity in leadership is so important. You can't put it on. You can't do anything except your best and live your best at all times, and then that way other people have something to look towards and hopefully emulate.
Yeah, I love that. But as you were speaking, you spoke about the difference between like the role of a captain or of that leader, and in different teams. And I can imagine this is very different within organisations. Is sometimes the captain will have more responsibility than potentially the coach. And actually, when I look at a workplace, a manager compared to the owner might have more impact on that team than the owner might do, and vice versa. Then on the size of organisation, etc. It makes me reflect on the English cricket team. And I don't know how much you follow cricket with Ben Stokes, and just the way cricket's played out, the captain is the vocal point, makes the majority of the decisions during the game, outside of the game as well. He is the person in charge. And compared to a hockey, captain is more of a voice and a role model, and that type of leader compared to the coach, I think takes more of a decision making and the loudness as well, right?
Yeah, I think so, and I also think at the end of the day, as much as a sport like cricket, the coach may be a little bit more distant and have a little bit less direct influence in terms of being able to touch base with players actually during the match. I still think it doesn't matter on the sport. The coach, the most powerful coaching is going to be the coach that allows players, creates a space for players to perform and make their own decisions. So yeah, once the game starts, actually you have less say and less involvement, and you fully trust your playing staff to get out and make the decisions, and you fully trust your captain or your leadership group to keep things in line, and you're there to make the minor adjustments as and when you can.
Love that. I'm going to move into the sports team section for a little bit. I feel like we covered quite a bit, and I think I'm worried of repetition. But I want just to explore that in regards to what makes a good sports team. So if you reflect back on your career as a coach, you must have teams which are more successful. I mean, as I've alluded to already, getting the South African team to where they were was pretty impressive. But have you coached a specific team which really stood out, and why they stood out?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the first thing is I may have been the head of the process or the visible side of the process, but it was the staff around me who filled in my gaps, played to their strengths, and allowed me to play to mine. And then a playing group who made the choice to perform and made the choice to be more successful. And those are the teams invariably that if I look back on my career, who did well. They were the teams who chose to be successful because they played with a good combination of head and heart, and they played to perform, and they held each other accountable, and they also supported each other and expected a level of performance. Mm-hmm. And of course, you have to have the ability to be at that level to then go above it in terms of what your level of performance is. But it was the teams who trusted each other to perform on the park, and we got that right quite a few times at national level. I've been lucky enough to coach some exceptionally strong club teams over the years, and I don't think we must forget that the team with the best players is normally the team that's going to be winning more often than not. But it's managing that and creating a trusting environment that empowers people to make good decisions that allows that talent to shine.
You said trust a few times here, and which I really like, and I fully understand. Is there anything else when you look at it? Is there anything you do or anything the team does that, I mean, apart from the ability ability plays a big role in the best teams, right? Is there anything else which really stands out apart from that trust?
Yeah, again, going back to consistency, which we've spoken about before, and going back to experience around the scenarios that you're going to compete in. You've got to play matches to learn how to win matches. So being successful is putting yourself in those situations as often as possible and learning how to get through them and learning what works and what doesn't work and learning what is a set play versus what is a good decision-making process. And you do that by training, you do that by playing. Most importantly, you do it by getting in those situations as often as possible. And that means exposure. If we take that into different contexts, it's exposure to consequences, it's exposure to the level of work or of sport that you're expected to perform at. If you haven't done it before, you can't understand it, you can't learn it, you have to do it.
Love that. Exposure is the word I'm taking away from that. I had a really nice question, but as I'm listening, I forget my questions. I mean, I don't know whether you find this when you're coaching, but you're listening so intently and going, "Oh, that's a nice bit." I forgot the question. I think my next question for you. I mean, if I remember it, I'll come back to it. Is when you reflect on your time as an elite coach, and I know you're still doing bits of that, and you're keeping your foot in the door, but when you reflect on your time now, what have you learned most? What's your biggest learning? Kind of, I did that wrong, I should have done that better, or now kind of when you started to where you are now, what do you make sure you do?
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, doing too much on my own, and again, speaking to the strengths and speaking to my responsibility, putting myself in front of everything, that was definitely a mistake. I should have. When I do it again, will definitely spread that emotional and logistical load around. My mentality behind it was, let me worry about this, let my staff fill in the gaps in the coaching and let them focus on why they're there, the hockey. But what that did in the end was pull me away from the hockey and leave me burnt out trying to chase things I could do nothing about. So yeah, making the circle as big as possible, not making the responsibility solely mine, sharing it around without it becoming something that becomes a load for everybody.
Okay, I love that. Load management, understanding kind of strengths of other people as well comes into me as you're talking. What about as a coaching aspect? Have you got a view of when we did this, or I don't know whether this is example, and this was the question I think I wanted to ask you earlier, was is there a bigger connection between the teams that are successful compared to the teams that aren't? So let me maybe phrase that in a different way for you. Were the teams that performed at their very best, in your experience, were they better bonded as a group and closer group of friends and connections than maybe the teams that wasn't?
It's such a good question, because I think professional sport is so transactional. You can't possibly be best friends with everybody that you play with. What you need to be able to do is work together, whether you enjoy each other's company off the park or not. Does it help for people to be friends? Yes. Can it help with vulnerability and trust? Absolutely. Can it also get in the way because the conversations perhaps are not robust enough? So many considerations. But for me, it's, can you thrive together? And is the environment a place where you can thrive as a team, whether you love each other's company or not? You can't, I don't think you can ever be in a situation where you can't stand the sight of each other, but you don't have to be best of friends to be able to perform together.
Yeah.
But you've got to have respect and trust and be willing to help the other person thrive as much as they help you thrive.
Yeah, love that. I'm going to throw a term out here, which you might have heard of before, and I presume you probably have, and trying to think about it in the team environment and to hear your voice on your thoughts on it. Have you heard of psychological safety?
Psychological safety, yeah.
How that really comes to mind when you were saying you don't have to be mate, you don't have to be friends, but the ability to go and thrive together. How do you, because we know psychological safety within the workplace is a vital important part of success and performance. How do you create that in a sports team?
The same way you create it anywhere. You start with trust. To be limitless, we talk a great deal about the trust equation, which is credibility plus reliability plus intimacy divided by self-orientation. And you just got to show up. You got to say you've got to demonstrate competence. You've got to be able to be there when you say you're going to be there. You've got to be able to be safe with other people's secrets and concerns. And it can't be about you. It's got to be about more than you, or more about the other person. And when you start with trust, you give trust to get trust, which is itself an expression of vulnerability. And from there, that psychological safety comes. It's very fragile. It can be something that's got to be really worked on, and it can disappear overnight. But it's about trust first and foremost.
Yeah, I love that. I love the way we keep reflecting back on trust as teams. I think it's an important part and a message to take home. Okay, so that's kind of the elite sports world kind of ticked off pretty well. I think we've covered some really nice parts. Let's look at how then we can put this into the workplace, because the workplace is a very different beast with all that's going on at the moment in the world of work. How do we create elite level performance and elite level teams?
Yeah, I was thinking about something just before the call, which I can't remember where I heard it. It's definitely not mine. Sports teams spend 90% of their time training and 10% of their time competing. Work teams spend 10% of their time, if they're lucky, training and 90% competing. That investment in improvement and that investment in learning and that investment in just practicing is obviously, how can you maximize that in a workspace? I don't think you could devote 90% of your time to it, but there's definitely a space for it in terms of creating deeper knowledge, deeper connection, deeper understanding of how a place works is useful. But in the end, I don't think there's fundamentally that much difference between a high-performing team, whether it's a sports team or a work team, because at the end of the day, it goes back to the same fundamentals: consistency, a basic standard of performance, and trust for everybody, and trust to then create that space where you thrive, where you appreciate what everybody brings to the party, working towards how do people do their best and bring their best, how do you fit them in, versus trying to fix them and make them into something they're not. One thing sport does really, really well is embraces difference. And in the workspace, I think we could do a lot more in terms of appreciating difference and learning to deploy that difference. And of course, that comes from a strengths-based background. But yeah, to repeat myself, the consistency and the trust, so important no matter what the team is.
Can you elaborate on that? Understanding the difference and how that fits into the workplace.
Everybody is different. As much as we live in a world that wants to put us into categories, we all bring we all show up in our own way. Okay. And the way we show up demonstrates how we can be successful, because that's where we're going to go to naturally. When we're at our best, when we're having a good day, when things are just flowing, we're playing to our strengths. We are going to what we know about ourselves on a subconscious level. And understanding that about each other in any team will help you know where to point somebody. It'll help you know how to appreciate somebody, how to give them feedback, how to manage them when they need bolstering in a certain space. And that becomes about appreciating what somebody brings rather than focusing on what they don't have.
Mm.
You hear so often, you hear areas for improvement. Okay. And now, of course, we do need to work on certain aspects of ourselves. And in a workspace, we can't always do the stuff that we absolutely love doing. And it doesn't work like that for all of us. But it's how you then deploy what you do have to make that part of your life as efficient and successful as it can be.
Yeah. So how then do you embrace that? So if you're the leader of that team, you're the manager, or the organization, how did you really bring that to the front?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is embracing, the strengths, but in a slightly different way of saying it. And you're right, that leader is so important. You could call it the coach or the captain. Is understanding where everybody fits in and understanding your own role in this as well. Your willingness to own that you bring a certain something, but you need a certain something in return. And being able to communicate that and being able to share that, then it just allows for that deployment and that connection and that understanding. Because from that understanding, this is what a person's good at, this is what a person needs help with. That can create so much in terms of empathy when you can understand exactly where somebody's coming from on an emotional and a connection level that feeds directly into performance. Again, we talk about high performance, we're talking about a level of achievement that is already there in a high performing space. But is how do we stay above that level, or at least on that level as consistently as possible? That's when we start to talk about thriving and high performance in general.
Yeah. And I think there's two parts, and this is something which you alluded to earlier on, right? And consistency is so important for this. When you look at the workplace, and you kind of spoke about that, competing 90% of the time, making sure that we are thriving. And if we're consistently trying to achieve, sometimes we need a bit of balance in regards to what that looks like, right? Energy output and the ability to keep working to our strengths, even if we are doing the things we love. Doing that for maybe too long and not having the breaks and not giving ourselves balance can still turn up and show up as overwork and overwhelm, and burnout is the term we know and use.
Yeah, I actually go back to what I said in the sports space about celebrating. For me, a celebration is not just that big party at the end of something huge. It's a process of looking back and appreciating, taking a breath, acknowledging each other's contribution, little treat, little reward, whether it's 5-minute walk or a breather or read the paper or whatever it might be, and then tune back in. There are celebrations where it's huge and it's the end, it's the culmination of a project or whatever it might be. But there are steps during the day that need to be celebrated, and there are pauses that need to be made. What do we also learn from the best performing athletes in the world is they spend most of their day asleep, because that's where you recover. So having the space in the high performance workspace to rest, and by rest I literally mean sleep, but also going into creative spaces, going into sports spaces, going into social and family spaces where you're just away from it. Okay, the people who can get that balance right, and overwork and stress and all those kind of things. Stress is good. Stress is part of performance, but it's understanding how much is too much and understanding how you respond and how you how you manage and embrace. That's really important. And yeah, taking that little moment to appreciate when you've done something well or you've completed a task on target. These things can add up over time.
Yeah, I think and it shows that we are very good at that, in especially in the UK. And as I think we have a high percentage, I can't remember exactly what the percentage is, of people who don't even use their holiday, let alone follow boundaries of work and environment, working space. So you forget that, and there is a really nice saying of new muscles aren't built in the gym; they're built in your rest. Yeah. And so it's the same as us as human beings, right? Energy isn't built whilst working. Our energy is built, and our muscles our brain is kind of best when it's recovered.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, one of my former captains, he always used to say, there's only so many energy points, and you start every day with that number. Where you allocate them, that's up to you, but you've only got so many. Yeah. And yeah, simple way of thinking about it, but absolutely. And that goes back, what you said there about the leave days, that goes back to being deliberate, being deliberate about your rest, being deliberate about your early morning preparation, being deliberate about your pauses during the day, being deliberate about your celebrations. These things, again, it's cumulative. It's cumulative. It won't catch up with you straight away, but it will catch up with you eventually if you don't take care of all aspects of performance.
Yeah, 100%. So we're coming to the end. I'm going to leave this in your core. Is there anything else you want to add in regards to kind of high performing teams and the workplace? Is there anything you've missed you really want to share?
My observation of high performance is that it can be anything. It can be anybody. We kind of package high performance as these ultra high performing individuals who are always shooting the lights out, who are 100% at the top of a pile. And for me, that's not true. You can embrace a high performance mindset, and you can be high performance where you are. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that goes back to thriving and playing to your strengths. Mm-hmm. That will help create that level of satisfaction, that level of achievement every day, as opposed to thinking that it's some pinnacle of performance up here. We all can get there, and sometimes we do, but it's where you are achieving now in that thriving space that can make the difference. And we go back to the beginning of this conversation. It's the people who have a handle on what they're good at. It's the people who have a handle on what they need and what they bring. And it's the people who have a handle on the routines and the consistencies that will help them be that person more often than not, and give themselves the grace to accept that we can't all have a brilliant day all the time, but we can still be consistent in how we approach every day.
I love that. Yeah, so many points. And I'm just going, I'm saying to myself, I need a Garreth in my brain just to remind me, like within my coaching career or as a performance coach, but also a hockey coach for the next role I take, going, I've got so much space to give this person. How can I make this person the best person of themselves? And do you know what? This video and this recording is such a really useful tool for people just to remind themselves what performance and being a good leader, being a good performer. I was going to say athlete, and then I was going to say human, but actually just performer, what that means and how we can achieve that. I think it's such a good video, and I really appreciate all this knowledge. Before I let you go, though, Garreth, I leave everybody with the chance to round it all up in kind of 3 take-home bits of advice. I don't really mind what direction you go in, but can you give me your top 3 tips for anybody trying to achieve top performance?
Yeah. Look after yourself first before you consider what you're going to bring to a team in a space. Be consistent about what you do and how you think every day, and find what makes you thrive. and bring that to your place of performance, and know what you need from that place to help you thrive all the time, or as often as possible.
Love that. Gareth, thank you ever so much. If there's been questions, I have not seen them on here because sometimes LinkedIn is like that. But I am going to share this. Thank you for doing this. Stay where you are. Just going to round it off. Keep an eye out for the next one. The next one is with, going to say, from Vodafone, talking about the DEI kind of plans at Vodafone and what they're doing there and how you can support employees. This will obviously be on YouTube for people to watch back. I might be watching this back once a week. But yeah, thank you again, and see you all soon. Have a lovely week and a lovely day. Here's to performance, right?
Thanks very much.